Yeah, because that's how the IRS works.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. This public hearing is being held tonight for us to review the actions that took place by the City Council last week. I do have a sign-up sheet, and I will read from that. When that is complete, I will open the mic to people on both sides of the room. I'll go back and forth, try to keep it balanced. Just to let you know that Alderwoman Philbrick will be viewing this from her TV at the nursing home this evening, but she is with us tonight in that manner. The first person signed up is Mr. William Ibers.
Hi, good evening, folks. My name is Bill Ibers. I reside at 44 Fitchville Road in Yantic. I'm also past chief of the Yantic Fire Department. I'm here to speak tonight about the reduction of the number of breathing apparatus that was proposed to be purchased for the Yantic Fire Service. The original number was 31, and it's been reduced to 25. So let's talk about the 31. 31 is basically a National Fire Protection Association requirement that requires one breathing apparatus for each seated position within the apparatus. We're not asking for any more than what the standard actually calls for. The second thing is to reduce the number of breathing apparatus by 6 is foolish. It creates some problems. It creates training issues, creates potential maintenance-related issues, and if you combine those together, obviously they create magnificent safety issues. The fire service in the city, and you folks as well, have always looked for parity amongst the six fire departments within this city. And to have 6 air packs out of all the air packs in the city being odd ducks just creates a significant problem. And then think about the firefighter that jumps in that seat. Do I have a new pack? Do I have an old pack? Which pack am I wearing? So I'm asking you to reinstate those 6 air packs into the line item for the Yantic Fire Department. Any questions, folks?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you much.
Mr. Frank Blanchard.
Good evening, Frank Blanchard, 151 Yannick Road, Fire Chief, Yannick Fire Engine Company, number 1. Tonight I would like to speak in our objection to the proposed cuts in the budget under the line item capital. Specifically, the removal of the SCBA replacements or any adjustment of that quantity. Thermal imaging cameras, energy conservation measures, and the repaving of the failed parking service at the station itself. Out of the 13 requests that were made by myself and the officers through the budget process, 10 of them were tentatively funded after long discussions with the city manager and finance. Determining the needs and the justification of each of those projects is a process that goes on for months with the city manager. By adjusting or removing those without understanding the specific implications that a department has impacts on safety. Out of the 3 that are proposed for elimination out of the capital, 3 of those will impair the safety of the members of the Yannick Fire Engine Company, number 1. And the other one will not allow us to take advantage of a program in the city to save energy. Essentially, that program has been proven time and time again to be successful in the city of Norwich. It's been in place for several years with Norwich Public Utilities, and we would like to see that program come to our station also. I'm always available. If anyone ever has a question and has a comment, wants to know why we requested something, city manager can always get a hold of me. You know how to get a hold of me. Many members of the council past have always reached out and asked why we requested an item if they don't understand. And I encourage you to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron Stoltz.
Good evening, Ron Stoltz, 5 Sunnyside West Road, Yannick, past chief and 62-year active member of the Yannick Fire Company. I am opposed to any cuts to the capital improvement budget that will affect the safety of and operations of the office of the Yannick Fire Company. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next person, I cannot read the handwriting. Angie? Oh, please. That's a G.
Yeah, it's not easy. Is that me? It's
It's
not
you.
that much.
It's you.
It's very embarrassing.
Sorry.
Thank you for your good humor about that.
Angelo Callis.
Thank you. Angelo Callis, 486 Chapel Hill Road, Oakdale, Connecticut. Mr. Mayor, members of the Norwich City Council, Mr. City Manager, and esteemed citizens. I have a few roles that I play in the city, but today I'm here to talk to you as the Union President of City Hall Workers, AFSCME Local 2422. We understand how valuable your time is and that you will be hearing several pleas to maintain specific services tonight. Out of respect for your time and knowing that you truly do understand what is at stake here this year, I will be speaking on behalf of the entire membership, so you don't have to hear person after person. Please understand that we all know how difficult this is. Thankfully, and I really mean this, I believe I know each of you well enough to know that you are all well-intended, and each of you are doing what you truly believe is best for the city. We respect that it is not your primary goal to cut services. We also appreciate and thank you for the care you have taken in this budget to minimize layoffs, although some exist. However, even not filling a vacant position is creating a reduction in services, a loss of quality, and places a huge burden on your remaining employees. The burden I'm referring to is not so much that of workload as it is in what we know to be a loss in the quality of the services that we are able to provide the citizens of Norwich. We all want to provide perfect services. However, we simply lack the manpower to do so. I would be negligent at this point to not notify you that your workforce is both exhausted and demoralized. In 15 years, we have seen our coworkers, those that provide direct services to the citizens of Norwich, be diminished from 88 positions to 66 by 2011, and as we stand today, 250. It would be nice to tell you that we all stood up and filled the gap with no loss in service or in the quality of service, but I can't lie to you. Every loss we have experienced has and must, as a result, provide a loss in services and the quality of services for the citizens of Norwich. We don't know that there's anything that can be done or if there's anything that you can do regarding these loss of services and people and positions to end the erosion of quality.
Thank you, sir.
Oh.
Sorry. Christopher Collinaire.
Christopher Collinaire, 7B Plumtree Drive, Captain Yannick Fire Engine Company. Council, I wish to address you today to discuss the proposed cuts to the Yannick Fire Department, specifically the thermal imager line. Thermal imagers are an invaluable tool in the fire service, and their use reaches beyond structure fires. Fire companies from around the world are using them in outdoor search and rescue, search for car accident victims, and hazardous materials incidents. As new uses become commonplace, the need for quality units on the fire ground becomes more urgent. Currently, Yantic operates 2 units, both of which are over 10 years old. We've been looking to replace these units now, and they've been on our budget for 3 years. If you look at the list of uses I just mentioned, you should see where 2 units just isn't enough, especially 2 aging units. At a common-sized house fire, we need to find and extinguish the fire, monitor conditions and safety of crews from the command post, search for victims, and possibly rescue a trapped or troubled firefighter. In a larger building, like many of the old mills we have in town and district, it's not implausible to need more than 10. Years ago, building and furniture construction was such that it burned cleaner, produced less gases. Today, houses are packed with petroleum-based products, including foam cushions, artificial lumber, televisions, computers, bedding, the list goes on. If you've ever watched a movie or a news report or been to a fire scene in town, you see that black billowing smoke. That smoke is impossible to see through, especially when it collects in a house. It's to the point now where we often cannot see our own feet on the floor or our gloved hands out in front of us. This also means we cannot see holes in the floor, trapped victims, or fire burning above our heads. This is what these cameras were for. This keeps us safe. The success of the fire service, specifically the volunteer service, is predicated on having the tools to do the increasing list of jobs that we're asked to do. I'm asking for you to reconsider cutting the budget and funding for these cameras. The cameras we have are now outdated. They don't hold adequate charge, and they are no longer compliant with the most current version of NFPA Regulation 1801. I'm asking you to support the service as you said you would when you stood in our firehouse and asked for our votes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Linda Thurturo.
My name is Linda Theodoro. I live at 37 Taftville Ockham Road. It is time that you stop making cuts to this year's budget before you do irreparable harm to our city. Instead, as soon as this year's budget is passed, you can start working on cost savings that will allow you to pass a budget next year without cutting needed services. Thank you.
Thank you. Gregory Stott.
Gregory Stott, 284 Plain Hill Road. Council members, please go to page 4 of the budget, specifically category 10% share of the Norwich Public Utility revenues, allocating almost $2.4 million to the CCD instead of the general fund. This allocation is stealing from every taxpayer and their families who own property in the 5 volunteer districts. Some CCD taxpayers speak about general benefit buildings downtown. However, the 5 volunteer fire departments in the TCD protect far more city assets. The Norwich Public Schools Central Office, the golf course, the skateboard park, the Little League field, Public Works headquarters, the senior center, the transfer station, the Ockham Hydroelectric Plant, Dodge Stadium, Situlet Park, the Fairview Reservoir, the Housing Authority, Mahan Drive soccer fields, the ice arena, the business park, and 9 out of the 13 schools in the city of Norwich. The TCD also has far more state assets. The East Great Plains DOT garage, the Ockham DOT garage, the Department of Motor Vehicles, Interstate 395, Route 2 and 32 connector, Uncas on the Thames campus, Norwich Technical School, Three Rivers Community College, and the National Guard Armory. 9 out of the 10 top taxpayers are protected by volunteers. Almost all the commercial development, big box stores, car dealerships, shopping plazas, restaurants, and hotels. Remember, the one city tax ordinance to share the CCD fire tax first failed from huge opposition in 2014. Later that year, it unanimously failed again in charter revision. It then failed a third time in the 2015 election when every single Democrat supporting it got voted out of office and every single Republican opposing it was voted in for a 6 Republican majority for the first time in 50 years. The NPU contribution is not a cash cow for the city manager to milk for the CCD's benefit. It's disingenuous for this council to pretend Norwich doesn't have enough money for our children's education, the library, and our volunteer fire service, only for the city manager to give a tax break to the downtown. I have some requests. Immediately shift the entire NPU contribution back to the general fund for all taxpayers to benefit from. Immediately restore all 5 volunteer fire department budgets. The TCD families deserve to have fully funded fire protection, not their tax money shifted downtown for somebody else's fire department. Immediately increase the Otis Library budget to $1.1 million. There is absolutely no reason for cuts to the library that my children love because the money is there. In closing, remember.
Thank you, sir. Tim Jenks.
Good evening. Tim Jenks, 32 Providence Street in Taftville. Just wanted to take a couple of minutes to speak about the proposed cuts to the Taftville Fire Department's capital budget. Over the last 10 years, we've had a consistent plan of upgrading and maintaining the property. this year. The last couple of years, we've asked for the paving to be redone, as we've got several cracks and they create hazards and drainage problems, as well as the painting inside of the building. That's been not funded for the last 3 years. Through several years ago, through a grant, we were able to get a Plymavent system, which will help drastically, which is, removes the diesel soot and exhaust, which will drastically, hopefully decrease the possibility of the carcinogens in the building. The main problem is the walls of the station have pretty much 50 years worth of buildup on them. That's what the painting and cleaning was for. And finally, I wanted to speak on the request for a piece of equipment that we believe is life-saving equipment, which is our Lucas device that was cut earlier. I ask you to restore all of the cuts made to the volunteer fire service in the city of Norwich. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stephen Case.
Hi, my name is Stephen Case. I reside at 31 South A Street, Taftville, a former chief of the Taftville Fire Department. I'm asking to restore the cuts to the Taftville Fire Department in the entire capital budget that's been proposed in front of you. I want to tell you a little story about the painting inside the Taftville station. I mean, it's $15,000. The last time that station was painted on the inside was over 35 years ago, and we painted it by hand ourselves. I think it's a little bit ridiculous to have this come to a non-recurring item, but it seems like we always have to fight for our money in Taftville. I don't know why. We're always like the stepsister, and I'm really tired of hearing this every time. You got me out of retirement to come tell you this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Diane Stone.
Good evening, and I'm glad that Alderman Philbrook is able to view what we're saying here tonight. I think it's really important when it comes to voting that everybody gets to hear what the public has to say. You've made it pretty clear from the campaign trail to now.
Excuse me?
I'm sorry, my name is Diane Stone, and I live on
address,
Harland
please.
Road.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry about that. You made it pretty clear from the campaign trail to now that you want to cut the budget till there's a mill rate decrease. Stop, please. Please stop. You were given a responsible budget that really was kind of an austerity budget to begin with. You've now made cuts to keep it under the 50 cliff. Any further cuts are going to be too deep, too irresponsible, and they're going to damage the city. Alderman Philbrook did say that last time you met, that after the cuts last year, the sky didn't fall. It did start to crumble, though. You heard the union president, you've heard the firefighters. It's crumbling. It doesn't happen all at once, but it's crumbling. If you keep making cuts, it's going to fall. Please look beyond the immediate impact of your decisions. I really do want you to lower the mill rate. I'm a taxpayer in this city. I'd like to not pay as much as I do. If you're serious about decreasing the mill rate, you really need to do it through policy change, like the cap on the unrestricted fund balance, like really looking at the health benefits, and looking at economic development. I don't buy that there's no time to come and give a report at a meeting every now and then about what's happening with the economic development that we're all paying for. You can't keep your campaign promise by working over this budget 1 month every year. You got to work it all year long, and I'd encourage you to do that as opposed to making more cuts this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kathleen Willen.
Kathleen Wheeland, 495 Laurel Hill Road, and I am the Genealogy and Local History Librarian at the Otis Library. I would like to request that you please maintain level funding for Otis Library. We didn't ask for an increase. We're trying to be responsible, but we've had cuts in the recent past, and it's very difficult to provide the service that the city and its people deserve. We've spoken before in the ways in which we assist the public to locate information, but also to catch up on skills that they need to get jobs, to help their kids with homework, or just live in today's world. Another important service that we provide is preserving the history of Norwich and making it available to the public. The photos, the newspapers, the indexes, and other ephemera that document the city's past and present. The staff works very hard to organize and publish these materials, but we are limited and we have other duties to fulfill. We make use of volunteers when we can, but there aren't that many volunteers who have the skills needed to digitize and upload and do the kinds of things that we're doing. I just ask for your consideration for us and think of the people of the city. I think we're the biggest bargain that the city has. Look at our salaries and compare them to everybody else who works for the city, and you'll know that that's true.
Thank you. John Andrusso.
My name is John Andrusso. I live at 49 Cedar Street. I've been a taxpayer in Norwich since 1987. I have a difficult time believing that for the second time in a row, I'm speaking at a city council meeting where cutting the budget for Otis Library is going to be discussed. I do need to ask you, when was the last time you spent any amount of time at the library? If you had spent any time there, you would have witnessed some pretty spiffy stuff, using my language. The librarians work like crazy, going above and beyond checking out books. Marion, the librarian, standing behind the circulation desk telling everyone to shush, is only a character in a musical by Meredith Willson. Come in and see what they do for the community. Come in and check out the children's library. It's an inviting space that would make any kid want to come in and take out a book. For a really good friend of mine who taught first grade along with me, I took her into the library, I brought her upstairs, and she went wild just over the selection of books up there. I saw a dad sitting for 20 minutes with his kid at a table, reading and playing with that kid in a library, who, as a former teacher, who could ask for more? The culture and history of the greater Norwich area is made available through programs at Otis. The history of man and the horror of the Holocaust were also shown at the library without cost to the public. There was no admission fee. I had the thrill of a lifetime when I witnessed a room at Otis Library being turned into a courtroom, and immigrants to our country were being sworn in as new citizens. It was a feeling beyond belief. The last thing I'm thrilled about is writing a check for my property tax. Trust me. There are a few things about this city I'm not happy about, to the point where I nearly considered running for the Board of Education. If any of you are interested in discussing my thoughts on the budget cut, please feel free to call me. Look for my name in the telephone book, because I know I will be looking for your names come voting time, as will my neighbors, as will my friends. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Yvette Giacaruso.
Good evening, Mayor Nystrom, City Manager Solomon, and the City Council members. Remember Pete Seeger's song, "Where Have All the Flowers Gone? Long Time Passing"? Well, what has happened with the dollars for the Board of Ed? Long time passing. Reduce funding from the local government while the cost for fuel, public utilities, salaries, bus contracts, materials, and equipment, and tuition to NFA, school choice, magnet schools, and special education, all these costs increase yearly. The bargaining units, such as teachers, administrators, nurses, paraeducators, custodians, took freezes, furlough days, steep freezes, increase in premium share in the previous years. The deductible for health insurance for teachers is the highest in the state. We have Norwich Public School Education Foundation, which awards many grants yearly to teachers in our district. We support our foundation by holding various events throughout the school year, such as Staff Follies, which many of you attended, a huge yard sale held at Waquanic School, the Wizard Basketball Games, sponsored by the Norwich Public School Foundation and the Social Services Department of the City of Norwich. Many grants go to the teachers from the foundation twice yearly to keep the budget down. The Board of Ed held frequent budget expenditure meetings, which has Councilwoman Gould as a member, which were open to the public. It became apparent that we would be short of money before the end of the school year. We asked Attorney Mooney and the State Department of Ed, what could we do? We received advice from both parties. We are presently reviewing their advice. The administration proposed a reorganization of the schools as a proposal to save $800,000. Did not go well. The Board of Ed budget is grant funded 45 to 47%. We have 76% of our students on free and reduced lunch, and we have 600 plus English learners. This is who we are, and we are trying our best to make Norwich Public School students receive the best education so they can compete in the future workforce. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Rich Huntley.
Good evening. Rich Huntley, 29 Great Plain Road, Norwich, Connecticut. I'm speaking on behalf of the East Great Plain Volunteer Fire Company for the proposed capital budget cuts for this year, the siding and the HVAC systems for the East Great Plain Volunteer Fire Company. One of the problems with cutting this out of our budget is the longer and longer we wait to do these capital projects, the more and more they cost in the long run, through the loss of energy costs, through the improvements of the systems, and the increasing costs of the systems to be put in as year and year go by, on and on and on. They keep getting cut from our budget, and we're just asking for the improvements to our station. Thank you.
Thank you. Joseph Ander.
Good evening. Joseph Ander, 35 Greenbrier Road. I'm also here representing East Great Plain Volunteer Fire Department, and I am opposed to these capital budget cuts. Just to let you know, we have a wooden building. Wooden buildings take maintenance. You know, we've made improvements over the years, and these are much needed improvements that we're looking for. That's all I had to add. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That completes those who pre-signed. If you would like to speak to the council this evening, please raise your hand, and I will again go left and right. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Rodney Boyd, 62 Roosevelt Avenue. I want to thank you folks for doing this budget process. I realize you spend a lot of spare time on this. It takes a lot of courage to cut a budget or keep a budget where it was last year. I know things go up in price. I'm 77 years old. I've seen this cycle many times. I've been standing right here for almost 50 years. I watch these budgets go up, and I watch the taxes go up, and I watch the people leave town, and I don't care for that. We are slowly but surely running a lot of people out of this town simply because of taxes. Don't expect businesses to come into a town where the taxes are out of sight. It will not happen. I just made a little tour around Jacksonville, down in Florida, parts of Georgia. I see what's going on in different places in the country, and we are at war with those areas. If they can put a factory or something else down in those places, they're going to do it. You can make a product down there just as cheap as you can make a product here, if not cheaper. Now, you're not going to get any accolades for passing the budget. I can understand firemen wanting increases and things like that. I was a fireman back in 1954. So, I understand what's going on. I also led damage control parties in the Navy. So I know what's going on with these guys.
Thank you. Yes, miss.
Hello, my name is Amethyst Dubé. I live at 12 Quarry Street. I've lived in the city for 14 years, and I've worked for the city for 6 years. I'm also the secretary for the Local 2422, the City Hall workers. I'm going to finish the statement that was prepared by our president, Angelo Callis. Where he left off is, we don't know that there's anything that can be done to end this erosion of quality services. We can only ask that if you choose to cut, that each cut not be treated as the cutting out of a tumor. We are not a tumor. Our services are not cancerous. We are a vibrant, living, productive tissue. We are an integral part of every service provided in the city. Our people make sure that the fire and police services are able to operate. We provide support to make sure that our roads are plowed. We make sure that your children are safe and growing healthy. We make sure that your families are stable and housed. We make sure that your buildings are safe and habitable. We provide the means for raising revenue and collecting revenues to make sure that everything in this city functions. And we also make sure that anyone seeking to invest in the city has the means to do so. These are vital services to the body of Norwich. If you must cut healthy living tissue, please do so with respect, and let us all mourn the losses together, because each position cut is a loss to the entire body. Since I have an extra second, I'd like to say something for myself. And with layoffs and bumping notices and everything that goes on this time of year, it's completely understandable that cuts have to be made, and nobody doesn't understand that who works for the city, especially those of us who also live in this city. It's just, we have some really great people who work for this city who are really good at their jobs, who are actually saving us money and time and are doing a great job. Unfortunately, when they get layoff notices or part-time reductions to their hours every year, they will eventually go someplace else, and we'll lose those really great people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Good evening. Bernard Hers, reside at 29 Bog Meadow Road, and also the Deputy Chief of Yannick Fire Engine Company. I just want to let you know that I oppose these budget cuts or reductions in our line items. As you see, four out of 5 of them are definitely safety issues. You've already explained the SCBA, the thermal imaging, and the lighting project. Just so you know, the paving project, Chief Blanchard and I have put that in the budget request for, it's been about 9 years now. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Mike?
Good evening. Michael DeZavitt, 248 Browning Road. I'm a lifelong resident of Norwich, currently president of Norwich Firefighters Local 892. I want to speak tonight in support of the administrative assistants that become a go-to for cost-saving measures every year. This may be a reduction to try and share staff, a reduction to part-time, or usually a complete elimination of a position. While being fiscally responsible and carrying out your duty to balance your budget, I would implore all of you to dive deeply into how these reductions to our administrative assistants impact how that department operates. More specifically, how that reduction impacts the visitors and citizens of Norwich. Make no mistake, these employees are on the front line. They are the face of Norwich. Think about it. They do the communication of the intentions of the department that they work for directly to the people. They face-to-face communications, emails, phone calls, letters, even social media. The first people you interact with are administrative assistants. Communication is just the beginning. Being proactive and taking initiative, keeping a positive attitude, and anticipating things that happen in advance all help make a department run efficiently. From my personal experiences with the offices of fleet maintenance, building inspection, of course the fire department, but in truth, it's really all the city offices. One word comes to mind, and it's dedication. Promoting Norwich's positives while improving on the negatives isn't just the job of the elected officials. It's all city employees that are tasked with it. Reducing the people in these departments who are on the front lines with our community sends the wrong message. Open for business and happy to assist. It's what you should hear and feel. Let us all achieve this by working together. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone on? Yes, David.
Good evening, David Krebs, 47 Prospect Street. To introduce myself, I moved here and bought my property in 1970. The mill rate was 80, and the downtown Christmas traffic required police supernumeraries because there was so much business in Norwich at that time. Now, I'm going to recite from the Christmas insert for the bulletin back in 2009 because I would be rather happy with the efficient use of tax dollars and maintain the services that we were paying for in 2009-2010 budget, so you can evaluate the efficient use of tax dollars between then and now. This is a recipe for lower power costs, and I'm doing this because it's an introduction for getting lower costs across the board. Norwich residents are now paying roughly 28% less for electricity than residents in surrounding communities. At NPU, we're proud of that, but electric prices across Connecticut are still much higher than they were years ago. High energy costs only contribute to the economic crisis affecting the region. Now, then I have an investing junk mail that I received that talked to Bitcoin investors because Bitcoins require a lot of electricity. The best 4 states in the country for electric prices on this search for investors: Idaho, 8 cents a kilowatt hour; Oklahoma, 7 7/8 cents a kilowatt hour; Washington State, 7 2/3 cents a kilowatt hour; and Louisiana, 7.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Connecticut is number 48 at 17.25 cents, with Alaska and Hawaii being even higher. Connecticut is next to last for economic development in the country. It is necessary to achieve goals, and the way to do that is to adopt a resolution for pay-as-you-go. And we can cut welfare costs by shifting welfare back to the state and let the state wizards figure that puzzle out in their budget. We can reduce fleet maintenance costs by privatizing services for everything except fire and police vehicles. We can cut police costs by utilizing supernumeraries again. Now back to the electricity costs for 2018. I used my World Almanac to put it down into dollars and cents. Now in California, 557 kilowatt hours are $94.59.
Thank you, sir. Anyone on this side like to speak to council? Yes, sir.
Guy Palazzo, 6 Harvard Terrace. Going to be 66 this year. 60 years spent here in Norwich. I'll offer something as simple as you can get, although the budget isn't simple at all, but this is a good one. The weather's getting worse here. It's going downhill. The taxes are going up. There's only one thing we can control. That's it.
Thank you. Yes, miss.
Good evening. I'm Sherry Ostroud, Harland Road, here in Norwich. I hadn't planned on speaking, but I really wanted to just express my agreement with so many folks here who have indicated their objection to the budget cuts that are happening. And one thing that really stood out to me from the last public hearing that was here last week, and something that did not come up, had to do with one employee who actually forfeited her income in order to save aspects of her department. And that's, I've never met her before, but that is the Director of Human Services, I would ask again that you relook at that one line item. There's many to relook at, but that one line item, restore her to whole, and consider contributing perhaps show leadership through the mayor's salary or perhaps the general manager's salary. I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone like to speak on this side, please? Who hasn't had a chance? We'll go back to the left. And also has not had a chance to speak. Yes, please.
Beryl Fishbone, 19 Bliss Place. Tonight we heard a lot about don't cut, don't do this and don't do that. You're in charge of a budget and there's going to be a lot of that. But when you're looking at that budget, what I'm going to ask you to do is look at the other side of the ledger. How can you use the cuts that you make, the changes that you make, the interpretations that you are making, so that the city can grow and build? How can you make the city better with those trimmings? And that was probably a really poor choice to call them trimmings. They're cuts. But how can you use those opportunities as points that make it the city better? Because that's what you've got to do. And everything else that you're doing, you've also got to improve the city and bring more businesses, bring more people, and improve what we have so that we can grow, so that we can stop the downward spiral. We need public works because those are the guys that make our city pretty, that make our city safe. These ladies and gentlemen from the fire departments do the same. They keep us safe. And I just wanted to remind you that every time you take one action, there's going to be another action, and it's your choice as to what that action can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak before the council? Yes, sir.
Nick DeLucia, 11 Calkins Road. Mr. Mayor, City Manager, Council, I'd like to thank you for having this and going over this budget. We know this is the hardest portion of your job. I want to touch on a few things people brought up tonight about individuals running campaigns and running to get elected on cutting taxes and reducing spending. You campaigned on that. You ran on that. You made that promise. You need to fulfill that promise. I don't see businesses coming down to downtown Norwich with a mill rate over 50. They're not going to stick around. People are already leaving our town. If you drive, anybody that drives through our city sees the number of real estate up on the market. I'm for a reduction in our budget, but I'm also thinking that we need to look at where we make these reductions. Stripping our first responders is not a good idea. These are individuals that have volunteered to put their life on the line to go into somebody's house and to take care of them and to help other people. I think the common sense needs to be done as far as the budget and finding different ways to offset revenue and what is a need and what is an ask that we don't really need. But I want to remind you all that you did promise to actually use common sense when going over our budget and to figure out the best way to not raise our taxes astronomically. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in the council, please? Yes, sir.
Patrick Daly, Chief of Police, Norwich Police Department, 142 Newton Street, Norwich, Connecticut. I'm here to address the council tonight in regard to the cutting of the vacant officer positions in the police department. Currently, the police department will have 4 positions cut. These 4 positions will put the city of Norwich in violation of terms and conditions of a 2012 COPS grant. We just heard a speaker talk about promises and keeping your promises. The city of Norwich accepts these conditions, and Norwich should not relinquish its role in that commitment and stand by its commitment. In addition to the possibility of repayment, the city most likely would never receive another DOJ grant again. The timing of this could not be worse. The federal omnibus fiscal year 18 budget contains increases due to the opioid crisis that has hit Norwich, as we know, so hard. There's a DOJ, Department of Justice, Addiction Recovery Grant stream for $333 million. The COPS grants have been increased $54 million to $275 million. And the DOJ JAG Justice Assistant grants have increased to $415 million. If we do not fill these vacant officer positions, all this funding is at risk. Congressman Courtney, in response to the opioid crisis and related deaths in Norwich, has assisted us in obtaining these grant potentials and fighting for us in Congress. He's also struggling right now to get Norwich added as a high-intensity drug trafficking area, HIDA. You may hear that, you may have heard that anachronism before. HIDA areas receive $280 million directly, also to combat drug trafficking. Norwich has made great progress in lowering the crime rate and operating an award-winning community policing unit. Let's not undo that success. Often I hear, why do we need so many police officers? Is there a war? The answer is, frankly, yes, there is a war. We lost 35 citizens last year. 35 people, sons, daughters, mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers died. These are Norwich residents. If they lost due to gun violence or traffic accidents, they'd be clamoring in the streets. They died, sadly, alone, mostly to a scourge that's sweeping the nation. We must continue this effort. Also want to address replacement overtime accounts. Cuts to this area will affect our officers' ability to put officers on the street to replace sick officers or people on vacation. And the only way to do that is to leave patrols open. So please think of the impact of the cuts. We need these dollars to continue to do the award-winning work we're doing and keep the crime rate down and keep the opioid deaths at bay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I'd also like to speak before council, please. God bless you.
Bless you.
If you still like to speak, please raise your hand so I can see. Yeah. Please, Brian.
Good evening, Brian Koblard, 16 Hobart Avenue, here in Norwich. I wasn't thinking of saying anything this evening, just listening, but a couple things came to mind. There were several people that spoke to you this evening about something that I think that's quite important. I believe it may have been a Diane. Beryl spoke of it. So was it Lucy? It is a policy change. You have a limited kettle that you can go to. Your taxpayers are being hit harder and harder. Every single year, we've seen this decline happening. No matter what happens and how you deal with the budget over the next couple of weeks, what you need to do after that budget is passed is do a change in attitude, a change in direction. Not how are we going to save money, though there are plenty of places and you can find them, but how are we going to increase the tax base by bringing others in. That needs to be the most aggressive thing that you undertake from July onwards through the following year. No question about it. Everybody's pockets are only so deep, and you can only grab so much of it. Before, consider a taxpayer a business owner in downtown. If we follow the line of greed by other people that say we're two cities and those outside should not contribute like they do in other cities to the central infrastructure of that city, that they're somehow different and better because they can wager more or sway more votes. That's not right. But take that business owner that's in the CCD, like myself, 37 years running a business in the downtown. And I think about it, if it goes into over 50, why not move just 4 miles and cut my tax bill in half? What business owner can be attracted here under those conditions? There's only so much that the nice things that can happen can end up ruling a business owner's intent on bringing their business here to start and grow. We do need a change of direction. We do need to end up supporting the way in which businesses can grow and flourish. They bring the employees, they bring the capital equipment, they bring your tax base, and that's how you spend the money. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else hasn't had a chance? Please simply raise your hand or just please approach the microphone. The time is yours. Anyone else like to speak before the council in this public hearing? Let's see if there's anyone else left. Okay? Thank you. Anyone else like to speak before council, please? Yes, sir.
John Blackburn, 15 Alice Street. Every year, same problem. Hartford is not sending the right amount of money down here, and we're all fighting over the same dollars, and that's why you have the fire department, education, everybody else fighting over the same pot of money, which is only a certain amount that the state sends down. That's where the problem is. That needs to change in Hartford. Maybe we should think about it in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who hasn't had a chance to speak before council, please?
Rob Demsky, 36 River Avenue. Throughout this process, I've heard language used frequently. Slashing of the budget. Today I heard cuts that are too deep, too irresponsible. We're talking about a potential range of reductions in spending from 1% to 5%, and even at that top end, 5%. I certainly don't consider that to be slashing of a budget, and there are very few reductions that could be made at that level that I would find to be too deep or too irresponsible. I also hear discussion of the town employee who's offered an altruistic and noble sacrifice. But each call that's made for the restoration of what was offered by that employee have the effect of making that sacrifice look more like political theater. So I'd caution anybody asking for that offer to be restored to consider that moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak before council? Anyone else hadn't had a chance to like to speak before council? Anyone else like to speak before council the third time? Is it with the permission, council object to a person having a second shot? Is there any objection? Well,
that's what I'm saying.
I understand. I understand. I mean, it hasn't been done before. But I understand. Come on. We're here for you to listen.
I worked late and I stated my name before. I wasn't able to get here at 7:30, and the inspiration came in the last 15 minutes, and I came up and said, let me offer something simple. It's not that simple. We know that. The fact is, I'm considering moving out of town. I've been here 60 years. I really mean the weather is terrible and the taxes are terrible. I mean, there's only one thing we can do here, but there's, I think, a couple ways to do it, keeping it simple. And we have people here that really know how to do this. Create more income into this business we call a city. And I'd love to say we need an efficiency officer. I got arrested 4 years ago here for pointing out to a fire marshal that he was doing his job wrong. I got arrested and I got an apology from the prosecutor and said, good luck if you're going to get involved in the city. I had a meeting with the chief that this is not a personal thing, but it was me trying to point out some inefficiencies. I got cuffs put on me. I got taken downtown. It was all thrown out. I got many apologies, but it's the point. We need an efficiency officer or somebody that takes that task. And then secondly, you might need an armed guard to guard the efficiency officer. I don't mean this to be sarcastic, but I mean there's places that we can find inefficiencies and cut. But it's not just that. It is bringing more income in. And we've talked about it in some of the big cities. They get income from people breaking the law and parking and tow trucks and things that we haven't even thought of here. So we can do that. We have some great people in this city and we have some great leaders. But the fact is, we've got to tighten the belt because, like I said, I'm really considering moving out of town. When this happened to me, I said either I get involved here or I leave because I can't take it. If you point out something that's being done wrong, I'm a business person in this area for years and years. You point out something that's being done wrong and you're, well, you know what happened now. If anybody, you don't need to know the story any more than that, but the story for our town is if people keep moving out, the ones who are left here saying we can't cut, wait till you see the taxes you're going to pay. When we're down to a population that is so low, what's going to be left? These people are going to share the misery. It's just going to be bad, and I won't be here for that. If we can't get this together with this crew we have here, we're never going to. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Okay. No outbursts, please. Go ahead, Dave. It's early enough.
I never finished my presentation, so I'll take advantage of this opportunity. Probably never happen again. I was pointing out the utility cost is determined in the World Almanac for 2018 to compare the cost, actual cost, according to a different set of statistics. Now, California, the cost is measured between the use, and in California, the use is 557 kilowatt hours that cost $94.60, whereas in Connecticut, the cost is $153.13 for 731 kilowatts. Over in New York State, the cost is $111.32 for 601 kilowatts, and in Massachusetts is $119.25 for 602, whereas Maine pays $86.75 to use 556 kilowatts. NPU should be separated so that the state can regulate our utility costs. Maybe they'll get the message that times are tough, like they put in the 2009 insert. As Will Rogers said, because we all know that death and taxes are going to happen, Will Rogers, the Depression-era cowboy humorist, said, death doesn't get worse every time taxes are being legislated. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak? Anyone else like to speak? Sir?
Once again, Greg Stott, 284 Plain Hill Road. Thank you for giving me the second opportunity to speak here tonight. I'd like to finish out after I left off with immediately increase the Otis Library budget to $1.1 million. There's absolutely no reason for cuts to our library that my children love because the money is there. I was going to close with, in closing, remember, the 10% NPU contribution to the general fund is a charter requirement. The firefighters from Local 892 deserve fair compensation for their services because they do a good job, but they don't protect the TCD. The CCD needs to pay for its own fire department. I explained to you where there was $2.4 million that are still on the table. That's the CCD. They need to pay their own share. Tonight, I've heard 3 of the volunteer fire chiefs speak out on budget requirements to repair their building and upkeep that apparently have been slated for reduction. I also heard the police chief speak out about vacant positions that he needs to keep our families safe, including mine. And I've read numerous articles in the paper about Board of Ed reps, and one of them spoke tonight, that pleading for money for the Board of Ed. There's $2.4 million that's being shifted by the city manager to the CCD. It's our money. We deserve it. We paid those taxes. That money needs to be shifted back to the general fund so that all citizens can benefit from it and fill some of these other needs for services that do come uptown and help us. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak? Anyone else like to speak for council? Third time. Anyone else like to speak for council? No one else. Thank you all for your input this evening, and thank you all for attending. Yes. Oh, Angelo.
Goodbye to you, Angelo. Goodbye.
I declare the hearing closed. Thank you.